obviously excited to get to game week. Been a really, really good fall camp. I'm really proud of our football team, just the work that they put in. It all stretches back to January when we got started to push, to progress, to improve, to get to this point. And I do feel that we have a team that is prepared at a very high level. They've worked extremely hard. The size, speed, athleticism, overall football intelligence, I think have all improved within our team. We're excited for the opportunity that's ahead, and a chance to go out with our first game and work to go put the best version of ourselves out on that field next Sunday night. And we talk a lot about the identity of a team, and I see one that like I said has a great work ethic. Really care about each other. They pushed and competed throughout, and we still need every rep and every minute leading up to kickoff to continue to get better, to be ready for Sunday night. But so excited to be on this stage, an opportunity to showcase our players, and obviously it's a wonderful institution. I think health-wise, going into this week, I like where we are. I think we're going to get a few guys that have kind of had some bumps and bruises along the way in fall camp. I think we're going to get most of them back here for this week. We'll make an announcement. He wasn't on the depth chart. Ja'Kai Douglas will miss a few games. You'll hear early in the season. You'll fully expect him back. Relatively soon, but he will miss for sure this first contest, probably the first couple, as we head into this season. But like I said, I like where our team's at. We've got a lot of work here throughout the course of this week in our final preparation. But really proud of this team and the coaching staff for all the work that's gone in to get us to this point.
You guys had some great position battles. The preliminary depth chart is out. I know it's not set in stone. But, when you look at the tight end position, you had returning Mark Easton was returned as a starter. What have Kyle and Jaheim shown you through preseason to get the nods?
I think that entire tight end room, we're going to have at least 4 guys that play, because Preston Daniel will also be able to make an impact, within our team. But, you see the versatility, just the consistency. I think, Kyle has been, he's been really good. And just all the things that he can do, the way that he's, his approach, his physicality, what he does in a route game, got great ball skills. He's a really good football player. Jaheim, once again, his versatility, the explosiveness that he shows. One of the things I've been so proud with Jaheim is, coming in, it's easy to watch film and to see what somebody does with the ball in their hands. And I think Jaheim's really embraced the role of being better, without the ball in his hands. As a blocker, as some of the finer technique and fundamentals. And I think Coach Thompson's done a great job with that group. And Mark Easton's had a really good fall camp. He's such a big target. He's a threat. Over 280 pounds, but he runs very, very well, and I think he's going to be somebody that's going to make a lot of great plays for us this year. So that's a position that I've been pleased with, and just the development of all those guys, and what they can do for this team. It just adds different levels to that in our attack.
Like based on the depth chart that Destin Hill has worked himself into having a pretty prominent role, both offense and maybe special teams. Because what has he done as a true freshman? Someone who's obviously had a different journey to get here to position himself to have that role.
He's kind of showcased it all. He's explosive. He's smart. He's done really good things with the ball in his hands. He's a definitely a very willing blocker, and something that we pride ourselves here with our receivers. And he's a good route runner. There's still going to be a lot of things that he's going to figure out along the way. He is a true freshman. Coming in, he's put himself in a position competing to start for us. Here early, but I think that just his mindset, his approach, all things, and then he's been productive. At the end of the day, you have to go out there and you have to produce, with that ability. And so, definitely proud of him for the work he's put in, and he's going to help this football team this year.
Have you guys put a plan in place or preparations for, the pending storm that may or may not come this way? And is there any update of whether that may impact the game or anything like that as of now?
Yeah, we've obviously something that we're tracking, just for our guys here, and we get great communication, university, athletic department, all things that we're aware of. But right now, we always will have plans if things need to adapt and adjust. But it's not something that we're thinking is going to, at this time, make a huge impact for our preparation this week, or what that would be for the end of the week towards the game.
To hear Jared Verse usually walking into practice, and they see him on the game field, of how talkative he is. Is he that talkative away from football? Is that his personality?
Jared likes to talk, and so he's he's a great young man. And he plays this game with tremendous passion. He is to see where he was a year ago, the impact that he had, on the field, really coming into this program, and I think his actions have spoke even louder than what his words are, and just how much he means, how much this team means to him, and how much his teammates mean to him, and the opportunity to get better, and I think we've seen that, and that's where. Everybody has their style, and for Jared, it's he likes to talk, but it's always being in control of himself in those situations. And I think he's grown in that. He's matured, in just his approach with that. But I've loved the work, and I'm expecting big things from him this year. And if his actions speak louder than his words, then we're going to be in great shape here.
You and Alex Atkins have talked often about having 8 O-linemen you trust to win games. What has that group shown you, and where do you think that group's taken a leap forward from a season ago, maybe?
I think just the consistency and execution, the ability, the size, the strength. I mean, those guys have all developed, and whether you have the newcomers that have joined, whether Jeremiah, Casey, KJ. I mean, those guys are all very experienced football players that have played at a high level. And then you look at the guys that have returned, and some of the new, even guys that were young in their process. I mean, just the way that they've grown, through their time here. I think Alex has done a great job in the developmental part of it, in knowing what to do and how to do it. And then Coach Storms and his staff, just the physical development has really helped us. And these guys, they embrace the mental part of it. You play an offensive line, you have to be. You have to be versatile, because it's just the different combinations, the different things that can happen. If somebody goes down, somebody has to step up. It might mean playing multiple positions, and we try to challenge our guys in those ways. But they really embrace that part of it. And I think when you see the way that they work to communicate with each other, whether it's two guys that have played one spot together, or if one of them had to flip to the other side. They understand the importance of that communication and the consistency of how they practice, and obviously building the relationships with the guys that are lined up with them.
This is the fourth straight year that Coach Kelly has coached against Jordan Travis. What is different about the guy he's going to see on Sunday night? And I'm sure it's a lot compared to the guy he saw in South Bend in 2020.
I think Jordan's always been an explosive player, and I think you look back, even to that game. I mean, he had a lot of explosive plays, and really helped put us in a position to have some success that night. And you've seen the complete player, and the explosiveness that he had with his legs, and even the moments with his arms, just the consistency of what he does in the passing game, the control of the offense, the confidence that he has in the situations and what he's being asked to do, whether it's 5 receivers out having to manage empty protections, or whether he's got to go under center and have run checks to what he might see. I mean, to having to drop back and have somebody pressure him in his face and be able to step into the throw and make a precision pass. He's done it all now to this point. So that experience, and then just the confidence of being in it. And he's a tremendous worker, and I think he literally earned everything that he's gotten. And I think that showed up in his game. And I love what I've seen. I love the way that he's approached fall camp. I think we talked about Jared, but Jordan's such a great example of when your best player goes out there and he plays at the level and practices at the level which he does. It's hard for everyone else not to rise up to that. And I mean, he is literally every practice, every rep, whether it was a day in helmets or a day in full pads. I mean, he has attacked every rep that he's had, and I've loved that. And I think he's put himself in a position to have the best year that he's had, and definitely he's a special player.
A lot of the transfers you guys have brought in the last few years have done more here than maybe they did at the previous schools for whatever reasons. How hard is it then to prepare for a team that's got a lot of transfers that maybe didn't do a ton of some guys didn't do a ton of previous schools, but not knowing what that's going to look like at their new school?
Yeah, we try to evaluate each player. That's one of the new elements of college football. I mean, when you're playing a team that has a lot of guys that played other places, you try to get the best sense of their skill set, things that they maybe like to do, where it is reactionary movements, offensively, defensively. Where are their strengths? What are areas that you've seen in the past where maybe you could try to take advantage of a thing or two, but ultimately, when the game gets there, you got to go play. And just like our team has gotten better from where it was a year ago, fully expect that LSU is going to be better than where they were as they ended the season. And so, and it's going to be a great matchup. And guys that have come in from the outside that are now in their starting lineup or are going to play a lot. We try to have as much information as possible, but you got to go out there and you got to play the game, and you got to be able to react to what you see, and fully expect that every player that you're going to step against is going to be better than what they've been. But that's our challenge. We got to do the same.
Last year, so many unknowns about that LSU team. Had been their first game, entirely new coaching staff, a lot of new players. I guess how valuable now having that year to be able to study? I know they have plenty of new pieces, but I guess what did you learn from kind of the extensive study about, and how did that team grow last year and now into this offseason?
That they're really good. It was a good team that we played at in our week 2, and they ended up growing and gelling together, and obviously that's evidence in winning the SEC West last year. And this is a team that they are very talented. Offensively, they return a lot of production. Some guys that were young that got thrown out there early. You saw them develop. Obviously. Daniel's the quarterback. He's a very talented young man, not only with his arm, but what he could do with his legs. You had to account for him in every way. You saw their running game could continue to take form as the season went on. Probably going to be one of the best receiving corps that we play all year. Here kicking off the season. I mean, it's a very talented and deep group. They got quality tight ends. Defensively, the defensive front. Linebackers, Harold Perkins, he didn't play much against us last year, and one of the more dynamic players in all of college football. So, you see, the elements of all things offensively and defensively, and I mean it's, they did much of the same of what I believe we did. They got better throughout the course of the year. They won some close games. Obviously they built their confidence, in what they were being asked to do and how they were asked to do it, and so I mean this is. It's going to be a heck of a matchup, and it's going to have a championship type feel to it, just because you have two teams that have experience and that I think are really talented.
This will be the 3rd straight year. You're the first game of the year for a Brian Kelly coach team. Like, is there enough familiarity that gives you both maybe comfort, or is there still going to be an element of surprise that'll come into a play maybe in the beginning of the game?
I mean, Coach Kelly is a great coach. I mean, he's done it for a long time and had success, everywhere that he's ever been. So, he's always every year presents his own challenges, and it's one of those things that when you respect the people you go against, you understand there is familiarity. We've competed for years, even before I was at Arizona State. We competed against him, even back years back when I was at Tulsa. Got a chance to see how he operates and what he does within his program. He's does a wonderful job in adapting to his personnel of who he has, what they do, whether it's offensively, defensively, special teams wise. So I mean that's what makes great coaches, and he's established himself as that throughout his career, and so We have to do a wonderful job in our preparation and our adjustments throughout the course of the game. But your first games, they're always unique in their own right, and you end up preparing for so many different things that you got to truly focus on yourself. And that's one of our big points of emphasis is making sure that fundamentally, technique-wise, communication, situationally aware. We got to be at our best, and then we'll be able to react to all the things that they do.
Be the first two-parter of the season. Obviously, Mason Smith's out for this game. What impact does him not playing have, and how deep is that room that they still have on that defensive line?
I mean, it's one of the better defensive lines in the country, and obviously, it truly is unfortunate for that young man to miss this game. I mean, he's a special player, and it was in our game last year. I mean, I think it was the 6th, 7th play of the game when he got hurt, and it was just he's one of those guys that for everything that I've ever known of him. I mean, he's a guy that you want to root for, and how he does things. It's just unfortunate that he's not going to be able to be a part of this game. But so it does make an impact because he is very, very impactful. But when you look at their defensive line, I mean, this is a deep group. This is one that's very talented. They know how to impact the quarterback, and they've done a wonderful job throughout the years. And then even some of the other newcomers that have joined the program, we got a chance to see what from their previous institution. I mean, this is going to be a deep group that definitely has talent.
Hey, Coach, UNC expects to hear back from the NCAA in the next couple of days about Tez Walker. Do you have an update on Daryl Jackson and the waiver process and his eligibility going into this year?
Yeah, that's something we're continuing to seek more guidance from on any reevaluation of the process, and all due respect to decisions that are made. I mean, I still find it unfortunate for the young man. He in December is when he chose for his situation to go into transfer portal, and there in January a new standard was signed in with the NCAA and on January 11th, and he had been enrolled here. So I'm hopeful that that's something that's still getting looked at. It's one of the things that we're continuing to check back on. But Daryl's he's practicing, he's preparing. You never know how things are going to go. Whether it's if it upholds where he's not eligible to play, then he's going to continue to prepare to be his best. I've respected so much his attitude and approach throughout this fall camp after finding out the news that it was denied. But I was always hopeful that that's something that would be reevaluated by the powers that be, and if he does get cleared, whether it's before the game or whether it's at some point during the season, he'll be ready. And so we're going to continue to go through that, and just hopeful.
On the depth chart, Ryan Fitzgerald won a kicking job. Can you talk about that battle between him and Tyler? And also Keon Coleman as a punt returner, obviously a little bit of a unique-looking body at punt returner.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ryan's done a remarkable job, and so has Tyler. I mean, those guys, it was probably as tight of a battle of any position battle that we've had. And you talk about competition within our team, and I think that's one of those competitions that were. I mean, it was two really, really good performances. It just, Ryan was, a little bit more consistent, throughout, and has earned the opportunity to be our starting kicker. Tyler is a wonderful player. He's got, he will be prepared, he will be ready if need be. But that's it still goes back to what's been done during practice and how guys are performed. And I know those guys, they've enjoyed the competition with each other, and they definitely helped each other and supported each other. So, but excited about where that room is right now. Keon as a punt returner, obviously he's a dynamic athlete. He is a bigger punt returner, 6'4", 215 pounds, but he's got great confidence back there. has really, really good range to be able to get to a lot of different kicks. It's one of the things that's been a great competition. Lawrence Toafili, Destin Hill, those guys have all, Dre Jacobs, have all been guys that have been a part of that. We've got some other guys that we do think have great futures back there in that role. But Keon, I think, gives us a wonderful chance to be able to help create some explosive plays in that regards, and definitely excited about what I've seen from him.
Can you describe how far DJ Lundy has come since you guys got here to now, and for him to be a co-starter, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, he's played so much football since his true freshman year, and he's been in it. I think when you see DJ when he was in high school, his junior year, I mean, basically he was all running back. That's what was his main priority. Then started playing linebacker senior year in high school. Very talented young man. And, he's done so much to help this team. Really on both sides of the ball. Being utilized as a fullback, but he's one of our best football players. And I think the mindset, the approach, he's going to play a lot. And I view it as we have 3 starting linebackers. I really love what I'm seeing from Omar Graham. I think Blake Nicholson's going to play this year. I think Justin Cryer going to play this year. Those guys are that's been a group that I think is by far the most depth we've had since we've been here. But it's also with top quality players, young men, the way that they've operate together. I mean, you're going to see that combination of those 3 in a lot of different ways. And but I think DJ's definitely performed as good as anybody probably on our football team, and just the growth of what he's been able to do, his understanding, the kind of the same thing we talked about, just the confidence of what he's being asked to do, and then just the finer details of how to do it. He's tough, he's fast, he's physical, and I love where he's at right now.
Obviously, Winston Wright has come a long way since last year with his that car accident injury. What was his reaction when he found out he was a co-starter, and just how big is it for him to even be in this situation right now?
Well, I mean, Winston knows he's put himself in a position to help his football team, and that's something that a year ago, we were all hopeful, but I mean, he had to go through a long and tough journey to get back to this point, and to see him confident, to see his speed, the explosiveness, being put back on display. He had a great play Sunday night where, those are the moments when you have the game taken away from you, and there is question whether you're going to maybe ever play again. To be able to get back out and to see and to feel, what you were, and it was a hard journey for him. But I mean, I compliment him, his family, his dad and I. We text all the time. I got that phone call the night where it happened, and I remember, I'll never forget talking to his dad, and to see him back on the field and having a chance to be able to help this football team is really special. And I'm grateful for Winston and just the work that he's put in, but excited to see him get out there and play.
Okay. All right, thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you guys.
How doing? A little disappointed in the cup game. Wow. Some people are consistent. Some people are consistent.
We good? All right, questions for Coach Atkins? Preferably on the left side. That's where the microphone is. start with Chris here in the front row.
You've talked previously about having 8 linemen you can win games with that you feel really good about. Obviously, they all show up on the depth chart. Can you just talk about what that group did in the preseason, how you feel about it, and how you're going to lean into the depth?
Well, yeah, we got some experiencing guys that put in a lot of time and reps, but also their understanding of the little nuances that you might can't show in practice, something that might come up in a scheme. They've showed the ability to kind of process that information, execute it. Now, not to discredit the young guys, they just have to. They don't have the rep count yet, which is a benefit for them. When I talked to Rob and Darius and all those guys and Mo, they said, man, we wish we had a group like us when we got here to be able to, not put our bodies in tough situations before they're built to withstand the game. So I think those guys, they've been through it. They've become a lot closer. And, so I believe in their ability to not only respond if something happens, but also to adapt and improvise if there's something out there that we haven't showed them or been able to rep quite a few times.
Stay here for Brendan. Even without Mason Smith, what challenges based on game prep and film does LSU's defensive front provide to you guys?
I think Coach Downer does a good job of really block the structure. They get blocked, but they don't stay blocked. They understand leverage. They know how to attack schemes first. Like if they're getting a base block, they know how to play that. If they get reach block, they know how to counter that. And they also know how to counter that uncanny way of just not staying. They understand the leverage of the defense, and they understand where they can go to go win and make tackles. They're allowed a D-line to play and make plays, and not just kind of clog holes, which presents a unique challenge.
Second row on the left for Essen.
Obviously, Keon and Johnny were kind of going in. We're kind of locked into those spots. But for Destin Hill and especially Winston Lake coming off his injury to be, co-starters, how big is that for both of them? One's a freshman, 2 years off of college, and others coming off a serious injury.
Yeah, I think, Destin came in and went right to work. And Winston has been working all he can since he's got here. He just had the unfortunate accident of getting his body back prepared. But this last scrimmage, he really showed us some things that he's kind of feeling better and moving better. So I think there's an interesting dynamic between the two because they're two good football players. And, so I'm glad we do have that kind of situation. But also depending on what personnel package you start with and things like that, whether you start in a bigger package and things like that. But both of those guys I have trust and believe that go out there and execute at a high level. But that is for Fat, who, he's a freshman but not really a freshman. And then you have Winston, who's played a lot of football. So just like what you said with the O-line, I like the experience and the age and the ownership. And, the depth of that position has really, really, really been quality.
Go to Ira, second row on your right.
Last year, going into this game, you guys had to probably make some educated guesses about what their DC was going to do as a play caller. What did you guys learn during that game? How quickly were you able to adjust, and how different is it now having seen a full year?
Well, yeah, it goes back to, they still had a whole offseason. So you still always have the element of surprise when it's the first game. I'm pretty sure they got some things that they've changed and tweaked their personnel. They got a couple of new guys. So, you're always going in basically trying to control what you do and having the answers for what shows up. But, so you still always have that. Now, we do have a lot more film on them and things like that, but they got film on us, and everybody adapts in 1 year. So in the first game, it's always pretty similar, so I think it's kind of the same. We're gonna go off. We're gonna put a game plan together of what we believe, but you also got to be ready for the new things they put in, the new looks, and he does a good job. Defense coordinator does a really good job of making you believe you have something, and then having about 2 or 3 unique ways to say where it's really not there because they can change the defense at any time. So, he does a good job, and we got to be prepared for it all and just make sure we're sound in execution of what we're trying to do. And that's what goes back to the experience of not just learning plays, but knowing how to react to what we're trying to accomplish of the concept of the plays.
Stay there for Corey.
You obviously knew Keon was good from the film and the production at another school. After watching him for a month, how much better is he than even you thought he was going to be when you've seen him up close now for a month?
Yeah, with Keon, the thing that, he's a big personality, outgoing. Everybody, he knows how to, light up a room and things, but the thing that people don't see is his preparation mentally. When we had these night meetings in camp where we do kind of like a football one-on-one. We go through different unique situations in games. We show film. It's like every night in camp we show some type of deal that might happen in the game to educate them on football. And I sit probably about 4 people away from him, and I hear him answering every question that comes up. Even the questions we're not really particularly asking the players, more like a question, hey, what are we going to do here? And he's answering them immediately. So his studying of the game, I think that's what kind of sets him apart. Yeah, he's a big, athletic, especially talented player, but what allows him to come in and pick it up so quickly is that he understands concepts, he knows the game, he understands situations, so you're able to put more on his plate than you normally would with a guy coming in with that less time to prepare.
What stands out? How do you prepare for a guy like a Harold Perkins, who, I mean, he can do so much. I feel it's not often a linebacker's a guy who takes over a game. I think we saw him do that last year as a freshman.
Oh, yeah. So, Harold was a guy that throughout the season started to show up for him. We didn't see him a lot game 1 because he was a freshman, but then you saw when they put him out there, his athletic ability to just, to go up and under blocks, to change direction, a lot of quickness. I think, I'm anticipating he's gotten a lot stronger. But he's a guy that we got to be aware of where he is on the field because he's shown the ability to play linebacker, spy quarterbacks, rush the passer. I mean, a unique ability, just to kind of be everywhere. Like back in the day, we'd say see ball, get ball guy. So he is a talent, and we have to be aware and make sure we understand where he is on the field at all times. He's a good football player.
We'll go back to Ira, second row on your right.
One of the things that I think you've said that Dylan really brought to the line was a physicality and an edge to him. Do you think the enough guys adapted that will carry it on, or what have you seen from this line in terms of that element?
Yeah, it's I ain't gonna say that, but our line it has to be that. We're not the pretty bunch. We got to go out there and we got to grind it every day, every way. Because that just has to be the mentality of that room, So whether it be a guy that's been here for a while, whether it be a guy we just brought in, whether it be a high school guy developing under the system, we have to be the nucleus of toughness, responding to adversity. That just comes with the culture of that position. And Dylan did a good job of showing them, hey, I've been to another place where that was the establishment of that place, and this is what the formula was for that, or this is the things we had to do. And as a coach, you can say it 10,000 times, but as a player, now it's represented. Now you have Maurice Smith, who showcases that on a daily basis. You have Darius Washington showcase. You got Rob Scott, guys that have been through the fire. You got guys that just understand that tough. And Casey Roddick is another guy. He's very similar to Dylan, where he's an older guy, been through a lot. Probably played more than Dylan did at the time, but different kind of program. But he also displays that toughness. He's taken every rep in camp. He showcases it, not just talks about it. So I believe that the culture of that room has become that just overall. And if you're not like that, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you in that room.
Anything else? All right, thanks, Coach.
Easy money.
I actually asked this question to Alex about Keon Coleman. So on the other side with Braden Fisk, you knew kind of what you were getting. I'm sure you watched film, you dove into it. Has he been better than you even thought he was going to be now that you've seen him in person for a full month and what he can do?
You know, Corey, yes, you know, just because you see it every day, you know, and what you see on tape is the game film, you know, and you think you know what you're going to get day to day, but you know, I think the most impressive thing about him is the day to day. You know, he's always the same. You know, he's shown good tape over at Western Michigan, but for what he does 7 days a week for us, you know, he's as consistent of a player that we have in our program right now with just daily mindset. Sorry about that. Daily mindset, daily way, just he goes about his business, you know, really impressive.
This linebacker core, I think Coach Norvell said he feels like this is the deepest you guys have been since you guys have been here. Could you talk specifically about DJ and how far he's come? Because he, just watching practice, he looks even more instinct. We talked about his body transformation, but he seems to be more instinctive and just better all around. How far has he come?
Yeah, I think he's our most improved linebacker, and that's not to knock anybody else. That's just his own growth. And you know, different people develop at different rates. He's played every year since he's walked on campus. Obviously, he's been in more of a limited role, special teams role, base linebacker, you know, but, you know, he was kind of in our top three last year, but, you know, it's a new year, and he's really made a lot of strides. I mean, he's definitely our most physically imposing backer from just size, strength, power. I've always thought he's brought some versatility to rush the passer. We haven't used him that way very much. But I think his just growth has really just come along. You know, I think Randy's done a good job with him. I think he's done a good job with himself of just adding layers to his game each year, and he's moving better. And so it just gives us an opportunity to try to get him on the field more.
For Gilbert, he's listed as a backup to Jared, I believe. What did you see from him and how far has he come since he's gotten here on campus?
You know, Gilbert's played. You know, he went through the whole spring, went through the fall. You know, he's had a stretch there in camp that I thought he was really making strides. We continue to challenge him. I think all the skills there. He's got great size. He's got good football to him. He's played a good amount of snaps, so there's some history there. But this is his first time with us. And I'm confident in Gilbert. I'm confident that we get the responses when we need them from him. I'm confident in the tools that he has. And I think this will be his best year because he's going in his later year in his career, and he's had enough experiences that we can build on those. And I think the competition here, I think with his ability, and you combine that with the stages that will help put this team on, I think we'll see the best of Gilbert.
Understanding that it's constantly evolving defense and just football in general as the season goes, but what do you feel good about going into the season? What are strengths, things that you can rest easy on going into game one?
Yeah, I just think the veteran presence, you know, it doesn't guarantee perfection, but it guarantees having a better sense of the ups and downs throughout a game, the ups and downs throughout a season. You've got a lot of history, not to fall back upon, but to grow from where you were. And I just, at all levels, you know, up front, at linebacker, and in the secondary. And, you know, the great part about new seasons, you have the infusion of new players, you know, and that comes at all levels too, you know, whether it's guys that have developed like a Byron Turner that's been on the team for multiple years, but now will have, you know, more of a role, to new players that just arrived, to incoming freshmen that have made an impact. So, you know, even though the answer is the strength of the guys coming back and just the veteran leadership I think we have, but then how does that mesh with the new group? And I thought we've had a tremendous camp. You know, our guys in all levels, you know, the sweat that they put in, but also the time together. You know, you just see the growth of this team, and I just think, you know, the time is coming soon, and you know, I hope it's all perfect, but I feel confident that no matter what happens, the highs and the lows, that we'll come out the other side and we'll come out a better football team.
You have, in the safety position, moving Kevin there obviously helps short things up, but you have, I think, 3 freshmen listed on the 2 deep. Does that speak to what they are as true freshmen, or does that speak to the need you guys have at that position?
Probably both, but we try to play guys at multiple spots. You guys know that. And so if those 3 couldn't play there, you'd see another guy there. I think we've got enough depth at some of the corner spots that you would have saw at one of those movements. But Kevin's been really good for us, and I think he's one of our smartest players on our football program. He's got a real toughness to him. He's got playmaking to him. And so when you add him to that group, that adds a veteran presence to it, which allows you, I don't want to say time because we've had time with these younger guys now, but where they can start to signify their roles. And, some of that's pretty set, but some of it's ever flowing too, and I think Conrad Hussey, Ashlyn Barker, and KJ Kirkland, they're going to help special teams, defense, some more than others, and I'm sure that's, I've got my mindset kind of now how they're going to help, but as the game goes on, I think my opinion on what Jared Verse is going to give us is pretty strong. My opinion on what we're going to see from Tatum Bethune, Renardo Green, and I don't want to say they won't exceed my expectations or our expectations, but there's just more history there, and you get a good sense of where it's going to go. For the younger guys that you mentioned, Ira, those 3 safeties that are in the 2 deep, they're going to get opportunities. How that goes will really start to layer on itself as the season goes up, right? That book will add pages. And but they're there because I think they can help us win football games. Now, some of that's going to be, 20 plays on defense. Some of it's going to be 20 plays on special teams. Some of those is going to be combined. And those roles are still fluid right now. But all 3 of those guys are rolling through with our second group right now, and they're all getting reps.
I know he's not listed as a starter, but what did you think of the preseason that Azarie had? And did he make, at least in my eyes, and I'm not you, but did he make some big strides since this spring? 100%.
Azarie, before the season started, we had a lot of returning guys back. And, we prepped Azarie before the summer started that, I know he has playmaking to him, and he played as a true freshman and played over 200 snaps and gave us some really good snaps. And so my job was to he's a corner, that's what he is. But we've tried to create different roles for him to give him those opportunities. And every time we did it in fall camp, whether it's at nickel, whether it was at corner, whether it was at dime, whether it was at safety, all different spots, he really took off. And I think, some guys early, you got to make that decision of, okay, is too much making him less of what he is? Or is it really starting to promote all of his attributes? And with Azarie, it was the other way. And so, I don't know what the rep counts are going to end up being, but, Azarie is going to be on the field a lot. Special teams, defense. I mean, he's going to be one of those key contributors in the secondary right now.
You could study some film of him from before, but last year, Jaden Daniels was game 1, obviously. There was a lot of newness that comes with him being at a new place. With a year under his belt now, I guess, how did you see him develop last year to where he is now coming into this year?
Yeah, I mean, he led that team to a really good season. I mean, they had double-digit wins, played in the SEC championship game, and he was as consistent of a playmaker as they had in that entire team. So, he's a quality quarterback. He's obviously done a lot with his legs, which has created some things with his arm. But, we saw through his history last year, through all those games, he's a talented player. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the country, and he's done a nice job. And he's played a lot of college football. He's got a full year under his belt with Coach Kelly and Coach Denbrock, and they've really done a good job of playing to his strengths. And so, he's a good quarterback. And looking forward to the challenge of Sunday.
What makes Malik Neighbors so potent and dangerous for them? And do you like to have a guy on him the entire game, or is it better to mix up personnel so that he has a different feel for who he's going up against?
Yeah, I mean, he's a proven all-SEC player because he's big, fast, and sure-handed. He runs like a slot receiver, and has big body catches like an outside receiver. So they've started to move him around. I think as they were going through last year, I think they felt confident in him. They had a couple other pieces too. They were trying to find what that looked like. I think just seeing his production towards the end of the year and through spring practice and through fall camp, I think he's established himself as their probably main target on the outside. And so it's gonna be necessary to put the right attention to him.
You mentioned earlier like having an idea of what Jared Verse is going to be able to give you guys going into this season. Last year, you maybe had an idea of it, but didn't know for sure. I guess having the luxury of knowing that guy, how impactful he is, like what does that do for you as a defensive coordinator that he is a building block, I guess?
Well, it creates expectations, but I think that goes, obviously, Jared, but there's a lot of pieces like that. I mean, how do you get better as a program? Individuals get better, and you play together. I think you can go down the list of people that we weren't. I mean, Renardo Green last year going in this game, like, did we know that he would return as a starting corner? No, right? Some people in this building we did. But there's a lot of names like that. Greedy Vance, Patrick Payton, and so I think with Jared, just like most guys, obviously he had a very impactful year. But, it is. I mean, it feels good to have really good players. I'm excited about that and looking forward to him going out there and putting that on display.
Last year, you guys, the depth got really tested on the defensive line as the year went on. How much better do you feel about being able to kind of withstand anything that comes your way? And I know you can never tell what's going to happen, but how much better do you feel, I guess, about the depth on the defensive line?
Well, we have more depth this year. We graduated a few guys, but we brought some in, and I think we've gotten progressively better and deeper. They've kind of coincided, right? I think we've had some elite players there, and we're deeper, we're better. What that's going to look like week 1, 2, 3, because you get whatever the season takes its toll, but we've recruited that way to make sure that as the season goes on, as the game goes on, we've got enough pieces. So it's important that we take advantage of those pieces early so that we can keep those pieces healthy throughout the year and we can play our best, late in the games and late in the season.
When it comes to neighbors, how much does it help your DBs, what they see every day in practice? Because they're seeing, with Johnny and Keon, some unique dudes that I don't know if they're the exact same kind of receiver that Malik Neighbors is, but they're really hard to cover too. How much does that competition help each day in practice going up against something like that?
Yeah, Corey, you hit it. I mean, when your best way to get better is the 6 days a week you're competing with each other. And I think the better both sides of the ball is, that iron sharpens iron mythology of just that mindset. And so, I think it helps us having those two big receivers. It's hard to you can't just practice against a 5'11" guy all year and then find how it feels to practice against bigger receivers. So, I think we're fortunate to have, the offense that we do to give us an opportunity to get up to that speed, to get up to the matchups. And I think, you probably ask the offensive guys the same question, and I'm sure it helps them too. So, I think that's part of the reason that Coach Norvell's probably expressed, and I'll reiterate, like, this is one of the better camps we've been a part of. I think because of the mindset of the players, the amount of returning players we've had, but then what that does for a one-on-one competition day in and day out. It's not one side of the ball, it's not one position group. It's been a battle, and so I think that'll really sharpen us for game 1 and sharpen us for the season, because that's what it's about.
You talked about experience and familiarity with your players. A guy like Fabian, do you have a sense of what you would like to see from him this week to be able to rely on him on Sunday?
Yeah, knock people backwards and make a bunch of tackles in the backfield. That would be fantastic. And Fabo can do it. I mean, that game he played last year against them, and it was one of the better defensive tackle performances I've saw. Obviously he's coming off of that injury that he had at the end of the last year, and but he wants it. He wants it as bad as anybody. So, I'm looking forward to making sure that we put him in the right spots and get the right amount of work out of him. I'm excited to see what he does. Thanks, guys.
JP, can you talk about the kicking battle with Ryan coming out on top and also Keon Coleman as a punt returner? I know we've asked you about it before, but what put him ahead to win that competition?
Yeah, so in terms of the kicking, I thought it was a really good competition. I thought both Ryan and Tyler, they competed well, in terms of how they approach it, but I thought they also competed well together in terms of the support, working together, trying to make each other better. So I thought the competition was good, and at the end of the day, Ryan was a little bit more consistent in terms of how we evaluated and what we're looking for in the charting and the team reps. And one thing we do know is that we have a very, very quality guy on the roster with Tyler as well. So we have better depth. We're better at the kicking spot than we were a year ago, because I think the competition was good for Ryan. It pushed him to a level that he hasn't been at with us so far. And then we also know we have Tyler if we were ever in a situation where we needed his services. In terms of Keon, he was a guy obviously that was unknown to us in terms of the return game until the summer. And he's done a really, really great job. He tracks the ball well. He has that great ability to judge the ball in the air. He's confident, and I think all those things together, along with his explosive playmaking ability, pushed us in that direction that he was the best suited for that punt return position.
And then that kickoff returner, a couple different guys are mentioned. Looks like Trey and Deuce are probably at the top of that, though. I guess what have you seen from them? Because what kind of different skill sets do they bring respectively to that position?
They're obviously a little bit different in terms of running style. Deuce is extremely explosive. He has that ability to stick his foot in the ground and get vertical, and really has an opportunity to make big plays in the return game. Trey returns the ball like a running back would, except for he has elite top end speed. So I think they both bring a little bit different strengths to it. But we've been really pleased with the depth that we have in that spot, and I think that has a chance to be a really explosive unit for us.
When it comes to kickoffs, was that a competition as well, or how do you guys evaluate that in particular? And was that, or like if you win one, or is it like two separate competitions?
Two separate evaluations in terms of the kickoffs and field goals. Ryan did a good job for us a year ago on kickoffs, especially as we got into the season. I was pleased with him, and he had a really, really good fall camp. And I think and we kind of, without even discussing the part of Max Schemento when he had his opportunities to do kickoffs last year, was really good. So we have quality depth at the kickoff spot. I know from a rhythm standpoint, it's something that Ryan likes to do, to stay in kind of a game rhythm with his field goals and kickoffs. And he did a great job with it in the fall. So we're going to start that way and see where that takes us.
Ryan obviously went through some ups and downs last year, and then you guys went out and brought in another kicker to challenge him. How did he handle all that, and what have you seen from him throughout the whole process?
Ryan really, in my opinion, handled all of it, dating back to a year ago like a pro. He went through his struggles, especially early in the year. It never really affected his approach or his demeanor in terms of how he showed up to work every day. And it was probably best exemplified by the way he kicked in practice. We talked about it at length a year ago, that he was really solid throughout the course of the weeks. I thought, and then he came out of it towards the end of the season. I thought he really started to hit the ball well. And then to bring in the competition, he never missed a beat. I think he knew that was something that potentially would be coming, but he never let it faze him. I think those two have formed kind of a bond and relationship together. As a matter of fact, when I told them kind of where things were going to go this season, they did. They were together when it happened. So, I think that kind of relationship, that kind of camaraderie is good for both of them. But they also push each other to be the best that they could be. And so I think the competition was good for Ryan, and he's continued to show up and do a good job anytime he's been asked to do anything.
This is kind of an existential question about that. There aren't many place kickers that have such good competition right behind them going into a season. How do you think Ryan will handle the fact that, if he goes into a little bit of a slump, you guys got a guy that you believe in that might come in and replace him if need be. And do you think it's good for him to have somebody like that on the roster?
Well, I think it's good to have someone like that on the roster. I think at every position group you want that competition, that sense of urgency from each player. But I would go back and say this. I don't think anybody or anything would put more pressure on Ryan than what he already puts on himself. He's extremely competitive. He wants to do well. I don't think he's going to be real worried about who's behind him because I think he just wants to be successful just because that's how he's driven and that's how he's built. So having a quality backup is a great thing for the program, but I don't think it's going to affect how he approaches his work day to day, other than knowing that he's being pushed, and that's already been something he's been working with through fall camp and spring ball.
You guys knew what you had with Jared and Patrick Payton going into camp. How did some of the depth pieces or rotational guys kind of present and show out during camp? Do you leave camp with more confidence than you had going into it?
Certainly feel better about where things are at in terms of depth at the defensive end spot coming out of camp. I thought Byron Turner was a big part of that. I thought he really showed significant improvement and consistency as fall camp went along. He flashed and made some big plays in some scrimmage situations, and that's really what we needed to see from him. Gilbert is a guy obviously that was a mid-year transfer who's played a lot of football. He played a lot of football a year to go to a different school, so I had a better feel for what he would look like. But I thought both Gilbert and Byron both made progress through the course of fall camp and put themselves in a position where we're going to have really quality depth defensive end spot.
Special teams. In terms of kick coverage, punt coverage, the other personnel on the field, could you talk about that and some of the talent that maybe you're able to utilize this year?
Yeah, so in both of our cover units, that's something that we work extremely hard at, just in terms of focus throughout the course of practice, meeting time, and we have some really quality players on both those units. I'll start with the punt unit. I think that core group of guys who are in the protection. Some of those guys have been around for a couple years doing it. Kalen DeLoach, Shaheem Brown. Jaheim Bell is going to be one of those guys. Tatum Bethune. Our ends, Azaria Thomas, Jarian Jones. Guys who have been out there and taken a lot of reps for us at those spots and take a lot of pride in it. One of the things that the way Coach Norvell has structured this program is, special teams are a point of emphasis in everything we do. So when you are called upon to be on one of those units, and especially if you're a frontline guy, it's something our guys take pride in. So I think we do have a lot of really good frontline players on our punt cover unit, and the same could be said for our kickoff cover. Our kickoff cover we talk about as being an identity unit for the program, the mentality and how we cover kicks. And I think our guys have done a pretty good job throughout the course of fall camp. Obviously, we're going to have a chance to put it on display on Sunday night, but I really like where both cover units are right now.
I don't know if I've ever asked this question before. Special teams coaches, how much do they impact what teams do? And the reason I ask is because LSU has a different special teams coach this year from last year. Do you expect anything different from what they did in terms of their approach?
Well, I think every program is probably a little bit unique in terms of that. Each special teams coordinator is going to have kind of his style and his scheme in terms of what they do, but it's always going to be dictated in terms of what the head coach is comfortable with. Some head coaches are really involved in what's going on schematically on special teams. Others aren't. Every time we've played Coach Kelly's team, he's had the same special teams coordinator up until this year. So, I have a sense and a feel kind of what we could expect to see, but there's going to be some unknown with that. But like in terms of like our program, like Coach Norvell is very involved in what we do on special teams. So, I would think there would be a lot of consistency in terms of how that would play out. So I think it's unique to each head coach and how much input and how much involvement they have in the special teams units.
Kind
kind of a bigger picture question, but Coach Fuller shared that, he believes that he and Coach Norvell, this might be one of the better, maybe the best camps they've been around as a team. I know you guys progress throughout a year, but how much of a team and their performance is, you kind of know in this part of the year, this is the preseason of what you've developed, and just how excited are you for what you guys have seen on the field in this last 20 practices?
Well, I would echo their sentiments in terms of how good of a camp that I thought it was. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the maturity in which we handled our business. Guys showed up. They showed up to work every day. They played hard throughout. We track everything, right? So just the explosive movements, how hard guys practiced, all of that GPS monitoring that we do reflected the fact that guys were working. But it wasn't just what was happening on the field. It was also the way in which they approached the meeting room, the way they handled themselves within the building. There was just a very mature approach to the camp, and I thought the guys handled it really, really well, which gives us a chance to, going into game week, to be in the best position we possibly can be in.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Awesome. Thank you all.